Hello, everyone, and happy Saturday. It's getting late in the spring now. Uh, we're getting some really warm days, especially in the southeast and in the southwest. We're getting some really hot, actually hot weather starting to come in. Uh, you're probably all wondering, when is silver going to break out? When's gold going to break out? Okay? And I'm going to tell you what, the fundamentals being the reasons why you should actually hold and own gold and silver in your own possession, and don't keep it in a bank, in a vaulting company, or in the bank safety deposit box. There's ways you can keep it yourself in your own possession. You don't lay it out on the kitchen table. Simply put, you don't lay it out. I did a show a while back where I explored a few simple hiding places. One of the ones I talked about in my show was how not to go burying it in your yard. Not to do that. Probably the highest security for holding it at home is under the slab in your house. Under the slab. And I explored ways of doing that in my show. But anyway, getting back to the subject matter of this, what you need to do is you need to find out when silver is going to break out and why it's so important this time. They had a bit of a breakout a few years ago, and silver went almost to $50. And it was caused by the 2008 financial crisis. Triggered a rise in silver and gold prices. The Fed, what happened in 2008 was a contraction of the financial system. See, the financial system is actually based on credit, and credit is based on debt. And it's all looped in together. They create the dollars, but they do not create the dollars needed to pay off the debt in their money creation tool. And so they have to keep constantly expanding the amount of the money supply to keep the system from contracting. So in 2008, we had a major contraction system. This is deflationary. On the other side of that, they have to react to these contractions. Otherwise, the system would fold in on itself in an implosion. Not an explosion, but an implosion. The old TVs, they used to make them. They used to have a picture tube, and they used to have a vacuum pressure inside that tube. It was a vacuum tube. And if you hit the tube with something like a hammer or something and it cracked, it would implode. It blows inward because it's got inward vacuum pressure. Well, this is exactly what's going to happen to the financial system because of the way it's created. This is not an explosion in the monetary supply. It's a contraction. It's an implosion. It's actually more than a contraction because it's so fast and it's so much money we're talking here. So in 2008, they had this implosion. And it almost got out of control. In order to stop it, they had to inflate the money supply in the other direction, and they almost created a hyperinflation. They come really close. What they created is they created a recovery, but it was a very limited recovery. Some could argue that they never even created a recovery, but we could argue that they created a small recovery. In doing so, they come close to having runaway inflation. This time, the problem is much larger than 2008 because they've kicked the can down the road and they've created a much larger bubble in credit. So when it contracts, and it's going to very soon, It's going to create a deflationary spike. I call it a deflationary spike event, but it's a deflationary event of epic proportions. It's not going to last very long because they're not going to allow it to last very long. They can't. Because just like in 2008, this one's even going to be more severe, a more severe contraction, and they have to stop it. They have no other choice but to stop it. If they didn't stop it, the system would melt down. And they're not going to allow the system to melt down, especially here in the United States. The problem is, now my talk is straying a little bit, I know, but over in Europe, it is going to melt down. I shouldn't laugh because the ramifications are very serious. Because of the European Central Bank and the way the euro is arranged and the way they put it all together, at least here in the United States, they're organized. The central bank here, the Federal Reserve, is organized, and they can stop this contraction. But in doing so, what they're going to do is they're going to create a recovery, and they're going to create an expansion of the monetary supply. The fear that this contraction is going to create, and the fear that's going, and also the inflation that's going to create on the other side, is going to create a situation very similar to what happened in 2008, except worse and more so. Just bigger. We've already seen what's going to happen. We've already seen how it functions. This time it's going to be bigger and larger. So what it's going to do to the price of silver and gold is going to be your big breakout. But it's going to be larger. So if we saw $50, if we saw a move, I think it was like from $9 to $50, if we saw that move, look at an exponentially larger move this time. We're probably looking at a move to triple-digit silver. I would imagine that the move is going to take us up probably in excess of $100 someplace, but more than 100. I truly believe it's going to crack the 100 mark, more than 100. And the thing about it is before we go into the hyperinflation, when you can still buy things with your dollars, silver is already going to have gone through its boom. So there will be a point in time when you can actually have an exit strategy from silver back into dollars again and be able to purchase something with your dollars before the hyperinflation hits. Now, when the hyperinflation hits, you're probably not going to want to sell back. That's going to be the final rally in fiat, not in fiat, but in silver, gold, and cryptocurrencies, where you don't sell back for fiat because fiat's going to be in its death throes at that point. It's going to finally die then at that point when the hyperinflation finally hits. But we're going to go through an economic recovery because last time in 2008, they didn't quite stimulate an economic recovery. This time they will. This time they're going to have to do so much stimulus this time that they're going to stimulate an economic recovery. And believe me, they're going to be standing there taking credit for it. They want to come out looking like the heroes. I mean, who doesn't want to be a hero? They're going to be a hero this time. They're going to save us from the boogeyman, the deflation, the deflationary spiral, the death spiral. And so in order to look like the hero, they're going to use the mainstream media as a tool to trumpet when the deflationary event hits and everything's bad. They're going to trumpet it through the mainstream media. That's the only story that's going to be out there practically. Is going to be the big story of the day is the economic crisis and the effects thereof. So that they can be the heroes on the other side of this when they bring the economic recovery through monetary stimulus. And they're going to turn into uber doves. So they're going to ultimately destroy the dollar. This is what they want to do because they want to bring out a new currency and get rid of cash. The banking system is going to finally try to get rid of cash. It's all in the plan. Cash is going to be on its way out because they cannot see what you're doing with cash. They do not like cash. It's just like gold and silver. They can't see where you're spending it. In fact, they can trace gold and silver easier. And believe me, they're planning on it. They're not planning, by the way, they're not planning on taking your gold and silver away from you. They're not going to work that way. It would be too hard logistically, it's almost impossible. Can you imagine them going from door to door and saying, you got to give us Aunt Martha's antique earrings because they're made out of silver? And the old woman says, I am not giving you those earrings unless over my dead body. What are they going to do? And they're going to meet that same sort of resistance at every single house. It's not going to happen, guys. It just ain't going to happen. What is going to happen is they're going to target the dealers of gold and silver, people who buy and sell gold and silver, and they're going to make them do extra paperwork. And the extra paperwork is going to involve taxes. And they're going to hit you in the tax area when you go to sell your silver. But they're not going to do that until after we have the main big rise in price in silver, and a lot of people have already sold out. Then you're going to see the legislation coming first. They're going to say, hey, you know what? People have made so much windfall taxes on silver and gold right now that we're going to put in extra paperwork, and we're going to make it so that if you buy or sell more than, say, I don't know, $2,000 worth of gold or silver. I'm just guessing at that figure. That the dealer is gonna have to get your social security number and your name and address and everything else, and then for IRS purposes or whatever. You know what I mean? And the thing is at that point, then they're going to slap you with a big tax. And that's how they're going to control it. They're going to control it with taxes. This way, they make a lot of extra money. This way, they don't have to go from house to house trying to confiscate it and have a gun behind every door that they're trying to knock on with people saying they're going to protect their silver and all this. This is impossible. They'd have to police the entire world. It's impossible. They're not going to hit it that way. They're going to come at it from a different angle, much easier angle for them, is when you go to sell. But you'll see that coming. On the other side of this, you're asking again, when is this big move in gold and silver coming? And gold and silver right now are like a coiled spring. They've got a tremendous amount of tension on them. And one of the things that's creating this tension is the fact that the whole earth has been scoured for the gold and silver supplies in the mines that's in the ground. They have went through with specialized equipment that they have now. They didn't have this equipment 100 years ago, but they have it now, where they can actually look into the ground. They can actually analyze, they can go through very quickly, and they can analyze ground and everything and check and find if there's silver and gold deposits. And they've scoured the entire earth looking for these things. They have looked on every inch of this planet now for gold and silver deposits. And they have found the best deposits. And for the most part, they've been in there mining in the best deposits already, picking the best fruit from the best deposits. And they have mines there already. Now, all these deposits that they're going to find now are mostly going to be secondary stuff that's a little bit harder to get out. And then later, they're not even going to find that. They'll have scoured the planet for gold and silver deposits. So what does this all mean? It means in the next 10, 20 years, looking out into the future, that it's going to be much, much, much harder to mine gold and silver. And oil's the same way. Oil is slowly drying up. The best deposits and the best oil is going. And so, looking out into the future, they're going to have to develop these new technologies. Electric cars and so on. Looking out into the future, because oil is going to go up so high you're not going to be able to afford to drive. Prices are going to go so high it's because they've scoured the earth for oil deposits as well. These are resources that are on this planet that are finite. Oil, gold, silver. And you can only dig so much of it out before you hit a spot where all that's left is smaller and smaller deposits. Now, like, you probably got a highway in front of your house. If you were to tear off the asphalt with an asphalt tearing off machine, they have these machines now that can strip the asphalt off in 5 minutes. It's got teeth on it. It rips the asphalt up and puts it into a truck and takes it away. If you were to take the asphalt away from the road in front of your house, get a bulldozer out there, dig up the ground underneath the asphalt, run it through water, a sluice. Run it through a sluice, the fine particles through a sluice. And if you did it enough, you would find that no matter where your road is, it would be varying in quantities, but no matter where your road is in front of your house, it would produce gold. But it would be very minute quantities. You'd have to filter through maybe 100 tons of gold. I mean, 100 tons of earth to get like a few tiny little flecks of gold. Right? Now, when you go to a place where there's a gold mine now, instead of going through 100 tons of earth to get a tiny little fleck, one little tiny fleck of gold, you only have to go through a much smaller amount of the ore to achieve a much larger amount of gold. Now, when they first started, I heard tales of like places like Sutter's Mill, when they had the gold rush in the 1800s. They went there, and when they first arrived there, nobody had mined it yet. On the stream, they could see gold nuggets on the stream, and they just picked them up. There was so much gold. But they mined through that easy stuff first. They always pick the easy stuff first, and a few people become rich, right? And then they go through later, and it becomes less and less. But as the price of gold goes up higher and higher, then it becomes more worthwhile to go after the less and less and less. And this is the way it goes. Now you got people out there that are digging in culverts underneath the highways, finding little tiny trace amounts of gold because the gold price is high. What about when the gold price goes really high? Then it'll be worthwhile to look for gold in places where they're not looking for it now. So they will continue to mine. But the price is endless how high the price can go on gold and silver as they mine it out. And so this is your fundamentals. This is the reason why this price is like hitting a bottom. When they drive this price down, it gets down around 1620, and it starts to bounce. And believe me, they're trying to drive it lower, but just won't go any lower. It's like a spring. They got the spring coils on it, and they're tightening the springs, but it keeps bouncing out on them. It keeps bouncing. It's bouncing because they're bouncing against the bottom mining production cost. So if you're buying in on gold and silver right now, you're buying with extremely strong fundamentals. Wonderful. Wonderful. And it's been so unloved and so unwanted, the sector. And the reason why is because the price is low. The price is low right now, and it's unwanted and unloved. And everybody will tell you that's the time you should be picking something up or buying something, is when the price is unwanted and unloved. So in this move, of gold and silver, we're going to see massive moves coming. But now, getting back to the start of my show, when's this going to start? It's going to start when the fear hits the marketplace. And this is when it's going to start. And an economic crisis generates a tremendous amount of fear. And what's going to happen is the driving force on the other side of this, when they start to head toward hyperinflation, is even going to drive it up even faster. So we're in the calm before the storm right now. And you're probably seeing your lowest prices, lowest ebb for gold and silver prices right now, where it's giving you an opportunity, and there's available gold and silver inventories, and it's giving you an opportunity to accumulate right now. The price, I can't see it going a whole lot lower. Mining production costs right now is around $14, all in mining production costs. Oh yeah, you get some of these guys out there, they can cheat on that. If they want to make their mine look more profitable or whatever, they can say, okay, we can mine it out of the ground for $9 or $8. But what they're doing is they're just telling you the bare essence price of actually getting the ore out of the ground and not even processing it. Just processing it to the first stage where they maybe do the first melt and they got some silver there, but it's not been purified even. So they say $9 an ounce for that, right? But then they got to send it away again to have it purified to 999. Then they have to send it away again to have it smelted into a coin or whatever. And all that costs money. And by the time you get all in, by the time you've shipped it out there to the coin dealer and everything else, you're looking at about 14 bucks right now, right? And that's not even including exploration for new mine deposits. Then you're probably getting up around the price it is right now, around 16 bucks or 17 bucks. If you were to put that in too, into the price mix. Exploration, future exploration. If you were to put that in, you'd probably be up around the price it's selling for. If you put future exploration, and you really need to, if you're going to figure out what it's really worth, you really need to add in future exploration, because once these mines have been dug out, what do you, if you haven't invested in any more exploration, how are you going to get any more silver? So, but they're not figuring that in even at the $14 an ounce price. They're just figuring in basically to get it into the coin that you buy. It costs them $14 is their cost, and they're selling it to you for $18. That's not much of a markup, boys. On anything else in the retail industry, everybody else would go broke trying to sell things with that small of a markup. Most people get 100% markup in an awful lot of businesses, like in the hardware business. If they pay 50 cents for a bolt, they're going to sell it to you for $1. And it's just steel. The bolt's made of steel. And they paid 50 cents. You pay $1. And so that's not uncommon. Their markup is much, much greater. Don't you kid yourself. These food stores and stuff, they're making 100% markup. This is why you go to buy Campbell's or whatever. Say your Campbell's you're buying is $1 a can. Campbell's soup, right? They can put it on sale for 50 cents. But then they're not making much when they sell it to you for 50 cents. They're getting down there their cost. They might be just getting rid of it because it's getting close to its expiry date. They pull rackets like that, And then they get rid of a bunch of they put their Campbell's on sale for half price Campbell's today, and you buy it for 50 cents a can, and they're getting near the expiry date, and they're just clearing it out. Anyway, I'm rambling a little bit. Look for your explosion in your price of silver coming up, and it's going to be bigger than 50 bucks, because that's what the last crisis, and the last crisis was weaker than this one. This one's going to be a more powerful crisis, so look for it to drive it up more than 50 bucks. So there will be a period when you can actually sell and still buy things with dollars, and it's probably going to go to over 100 bucks an ounce, and you'd be able to buy things like if you wanted a new car, or you want a house that you got your eye on, or anything else, real estate. I wouldn't recommend buying these things, but you'll be able to. You'll be able to take a trip or whatever you want to do. There's going to be a period of time there before the hyperinflation sets in, and when the economy recovers. And so there's going to be a bit of a booming period there. It's going to last a few months, possibly 5 or 6 months. It's going to be an economic recovery, and people are going to be spending money like crazy, because it's going to be a lot of money floating around. And that's when silver is going to be like, maybe, I don't know, let me just guess. Let me guess about maybe $149 an ounce. Prices, though, on everything you go out there to buy is probably going to be double what they are now. But still, that makes it a good value. That would be the equivalent buying value of $75 silver right now. You see where I'm going with that? So if prices have doubled from what you can buy right now with your dollar, and you pay $18 an ounce, right? But silver goes up to $150 an ounce. You still have the equivalent buying power of $75 now, which would be a considerable increase on your investment. That's if you wanted to sell it at that point, to go out and buy something like a car or boat or whatever you want to buy. Okay? So listen, thank you guys for listening. And now I think you have a little bit better idea. When I think she's going to explode in price, silver, it's going to explode in price when the fear factor comes in from the next financial crisis. After that fear factor strikes, that's when gold and silver is going to go up. Thank you guys for listening. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next show. Bye-bye.